Today, we discuss the impact that Bo Horvat has had on the New York Islanders since he joined the team, plus a few examples of the growth in Lane Lambert's coaching and a full preview of tonight's vital game in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us today and be part of the Locked On Islanders family. And thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Lots to discuss on today's show, including a full preview of tonight's game in Pittsburgh. But first, if you've got something Islanders related on your mind, maybe you have a question for us or a comment about something we've talked about on the show, or maybe you have an idea of a topic you'd like to hear us discuss on a future episode, feel free to email us. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYR-VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. And I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So definitely join me for some instant insight and analysis. And it's always great to interact and talk Islanders hockey with fans, game time or anytime. So please do feel free to reach out. Wanted to start off today's show discussing the impact that Bo Horvat has had on this team. He's now played with the Islanders for 14 games, and it's been about a month since the trade, give or take a couple of days. And, what was it, a week later that he signed the lengthy extension, the 8-year extension that kicks in next year. And if you look at the statistics initially, you might think, Bo Horvat, he's doing okay, but, 14 games, 5 goals, 8 points, 6 penalty minutes, a +2, doesn't sound outstanding, but sounds okay. But when you dig a little deeper and you look at some of the things that Bo Horvat has accomplished for the Islanders that go beyond goals and assists, I think you'll understand why Bo Horvat has been a vital addition for the New York Islanders. And I'll put it this way. Start with this. Right now, the Islanders are without Matthew Barzal, who prior to Horvat being here, and probably even after Horvat is here, is their most dynamic offensive player. They're without Barzy, and they've been without J.G. Pageau now for 10 games. So that's your third line center, who's also on your second power play unit, also on your PK, a sort of a glue guy on your team, and your most dynamic offensive player. Both of them out of the lineup for an extended period of time. I'll put it to you this way. Without Bo Horvat, there is no way the Islanders survive and they've thrived now over the last dozen games or so without those two players in the lineup for most of them. Here's what Bo Horvat has been able to do. Horvat has given the Islanders just the ability, I think, to really do more things on both sides of the ice. And that's huge for this team, especially given the coaching situation where you have a rookie head coach who is still learning. And we'll sort of tie all of this in together. Horvat, look at the last 5 games. Bo Horvat in the last 5 games has played 22 minutes and 40 seconds, 20 minutes and 33 seconds, 23 minutes and 51 seconds, 2018 in the win over Winnipeg, and then 21:53 in the loss back on Friday, February 24th to the LA Kings. He is playing 20, sometimes 22, 23 plus minutes a night. And yeah, in those 5 games, he has 1 goal and no assists. And he's even in plus minus, and he has 6 penalty minutes. But here's the thing. A, he's shooting the puck, which is something the Islanders didn't always do. B, without Barzal and without Pajot, the Islanders wouldn't have had, before this trade, a player who could come in and give you effectively 20, 21, 22 minutes a game. He has been very valuable in the faceoff circle. He has won more than 50. He's never won less than 57% of his faceoffs in any of those 5 games. 57.1, 58.8, 82.4, 80, and 60% in those 5 games from oldest to newest. He has helped out on the penalty kill. And I don't want to think about what the penalty kill would have been if Pajot is out of the lineup, Clutterbuck is out of the lineup, and Bo Horvat wasn't there to fill in. So, in addition to his leadership qualities, his ability to win possession of the puck on faceoffs, his ability to help on the power play, and yeah, the power play still kind of struggling and not finishing well, and we'll discuss that at some point as well, not maybe today, but on a future show. But doing all of these other things has really sustained the Islanders. The offense that he's providing, even if he's not scoring a lot in these last 5 games, just the shot attempts. I mean, he's never had less than 2 shots on goal in any of these games. He had 2 shots, 3 shots, 7, 3, and 2. Those are, solid numbers for any top line forward where, you're getting 20 shots, an average of 4 shots a game over the last 5. So he is just doing all the little things that the Islanders need him to do. Couldn't survive the PK without Pajot. The first line, while not as dynamic as it was when Barzal and Horvat were on the ice together, I don't want to think about where it would have been without Bo Horvat. Who would you have put on that first line with Barzy out? Would you have gone to, Nelson, Lee, and Palmieri as your top line, and then try to cobble together a second, third, and fourth line without Pajot in there and without Horvat? Bo Horvat has really helped this team in a lot of little ways, in addition to the offense that he has provided. And he still will, I think, get better once Matthew Barzal hopefully returns late in the season, when he's a little more acclimated to the team, a little bit more acclimated to Lane Lambert and his system. But overall, he has just been a very solid addition. And without the addition of Bo Horvat, there is no way, in my mind, that this team, without Pajot and without Barzal, is still in the thick of the wild card hunt. Having him there, definitely a big asset to the New York Islanders. And look, you can argue that the trade that Lou Lamoriello made, giving up another first-round pick, hey, maybe he shouldn't have done that for future purposes and what have you. But I think the one thing that you can't disagree with is that the presence of Bo Horvat has had a big positive influence on the Islanders so far this year, and that's without him going on a tear offensively. So Bo Horvat been a real solid addition to the New York Islanders, and that is a big help. We have got a lot more to discuss on today's episode. We'll talk a little more about Lane Lambert and some of the things I've seen from him in the last, let's say, week to 10 days. Again, maybe since the Barzal injury, that show how he's grown as a coach. And things that I like. Not that I'm saying he's perfect, but more on that. We'll preview tonight's game in Pittsburgh. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We're past the midway point of the NBA season, so now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. And hey, Islander fans, check out the odds on tonight's game in Pittsburgh. Lots of ways you can use your knowledge of the Islanders on FanDuel. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So let's talk Lane Lambert. I think, I was critical of him earlier in the year, and I think deservedly so. And yet at the same time, when I pointed out some things that he did that, maybe didn't make a lot of sense or that at least were questionable, I think that what we've seen in the last few weeks from Lane Lambert has been a positive. And I always pointed out he's a rookie. I hope he will learn and grow into the job. And I think we're seeing signs of that. And look, early in the year, Lane Lambert tried to get his defensemen to pinch more and get more involved in the attack. And yeah, very early in the season, that was working. They were scoring more and the defense was pitching in, but it did end up backfiring because of the Islanders. It made the offense a little bit more dangerous, but it made the defense a lot more vulnerable. And in the long run, the offense just doesn't have the firepower to keep up. Well, as of late, the Islanders have sort of turned things around. And one of the reasons that we've seen, I heard so many fans in comments on YouTube and on Twitter and in emails talk about accountability. There isn't a lot of accountability on this team. You make mistakes and then, okay, you're still in the lineup. Well, now we're starting to see some more accountability. We're seeing, for example, in the game against Buffalo on Tuesday, Pierre Engvall sat on the bench for the final 15 minutes of that game. And this is not the first time that the bench has been shortened, especially since the injuries to Barzal and Pajot. We've seen Ross Johnston and Otto Koivula and, players on that fourth line really get, 4, 5, 8 minutes in a game where Bo Horvat, as we discussed earlier on the show, ends up getting 22, 23 minutes in a game. We've seen Josh Bailey drop down to the bottom six, even on the fourth line at times, and yet at other times coming up and getting back into the top six and having that pay off at different times. We've seen players get rewarded for their solid play, whether it is Hudson Fasching, who has played extensively now on the third line, whether it's Casey Cizikas, who has moved up into the top six at times and up to the third line at times because of the way he's been playing. And so that flexibility, the ability to shorten the bench when the team needs a little jump to get more ice time out of your top guys, to finally bench or limit the amount of ice time of players who are struggling. Look, here's what Lambert said about Engvall being benched for the last 15 minutes of the game. He's new here. It's a different adjustment. There's an adjustment to systems and things like that. He's fine. He'll be fine. We went with guys that were a little more used to what we were doing, and we'll continue to work with that, and Pierre will be fine. You know what? He's simultaneously saying, we're up by a goal, we're holding on to a lead. I want my guys who know the system, who are going to back check, who are going to play the way they know I want them to play. And yet simultaneously he's saying, I'm not worried about Pierre Engvall. He's defending him, saying he's going to be a solid contributor. You don't need to worry about him. And this is why I did what I did. And I just think that shows a certain amount of growth. And look, is Lane Lambert Al Arbor or Scotty Bowman? No, he's not. He's not even at the level of Barry Trotz yet. But it takes time. And while a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe we should fire Lane Lambert, I'm glad that they waited with regard to that. And I think over the last, 14 games or so, really since the Horvat trade especially, we have seen growth and a learning curve from Lane Lambert. And that's what you need to see. He realized that the pinching wasn't working. It was modified. He's changed his defensive pairings, broken up Pelech and Pulak. I'm still not thrilled with Aho and Dobson being what essentially now is the third pair. But at the same time, the other two pairs are doing well. And we're seeing Dobson and Aho getting less ice time, which, when there's a power play, you're going to see those guys out there. But at 5-on-5 or certainly not shorthanded, you're not going to see them as much. So he's experimenting. He's going with what works. And a lot of the changes we're seeing from Lane Lambert are paying off, whether it's your top forwards getting more ice time, whether it's benching somebody but defending them at the same time, giving players more accountability by sitting them at different times. I just like the way this is playing out. I'm not saying he's there yet, but the needle is definitely moving in the right direction. The arrow is pointing up, and that is what we need to see from Lane Lambert and for the New York Islanders as we get deeper and deeper into the stretch drive. So signs of growth from Lane Lambert. No, he's not a Hall of Fame head coach just yet, but progress clearly in my mind being made. And that is something that is a positive for the New York Islanders. We've got a lot more to discuss on today's show. We will break down a vital game tonight in Pittsburgh against the Penguins, the third of 4 games against teams that, at least at the start of this 4-game stretch, were battling the Islanders for those 2 wild card spots in the Eastern Conference. We'll also have our Islanders birthday of the day, a big defenseman who was with the Islanders in the late 2000s. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast newsletter. Hey, Isles fans, are you looking for the best hockey newsletter on the internet? Well, look no further. The Adam Rothstein Hockey Podcast newsletter is the best newsletter for any hockey fan whether it's talking about the history of hockey video games, or how to improve your game. You'll find all that and a lot more in this newsletter. Also, if you like the newsletter, be sure to check out the main podcast on Spotify. Log on to rothsteina.substack.com. That's rothsteina.substack.com. Hope to see you there. So tonight, Islanders, Penguins, fourth and final meeting of the season between these two teams. And I don't have to tell you the importance of this game. Islanders right now 1 point ahead of the Penguins for fourth place in the Metro for the wild card spots. But Pittsburgh has 3 games in hand. Lose this game in regulation, Pittsburgh is up a point with 3 games in hand. Beat the Penguins in regulation, you're up 3 points with 3 games in hand. And suddenly the pressure on Pittsburgh to win those games in hand grows a lot bigger. The Penguins, fresh off a dramatic win, and they have now won 4 of their last 5. And they just beat Columbus on Tuesday in overtime 5-4 after being down early in the game 4-0. And look, I know the Columbus Blue Jackets are struggling right now, but when you're down 4-0 and you come back to get 2 points, that is impressive. So credit to the Penguins on that one. And I know Islander fans were disappointed for sure. Statistically right now, the Penguins are a very middle of the pack team. They're 14th in the league in goals scored, 18th in goals against. Their power play is 16th, dead in the middle, 21.1% success rate. The penalty kill, also right in the middle at 16th, 79.3% success rate. And that tells you, a lot about where this team is. They are inconsistent. Sometimes they look like world beaters. Maybe that game against Columbus was almost like Pittsburgh's season in microcosm. They started off being outplayed, not doing well, fall behind. And yet, as much as they can look terrible at times they remind you that players like Crosby and Malkin and Letang have won multiple Stanley Cups, and they're capable still of playing exceptional hockey. Goaltending has been an issue. We remember the last time these two teams played, and it was the first game back from an injury for Tristan Jarry. He looked rusty, and that was a big reason the Islanders won. But Jarry, look, 19-7-5 this year, a .286 goals against, and a .914 save percentage. So his numbers are looking up. Casey DeSmith, the backup, he is 12-13-4 with a .322 goals against average and a .906 save percentage. So clearly Jarry is better than DeSmith, and DeSmith actually came in after Jarry gave up the 4 goals in the first 22 and a half minutes against Columbus, and DeSmith did not let in a goal the rest of the way. So it'll be interesting to see whether the Penguins stick with DeSmith or go back to Jarry tonight against the Islanders. I don't know if I have to tell anybody about Sidney Crosby. He always seems to play well against the Islanders. He leads the team with 76 points in 63 games. 48 of those are assists. He's first on the team in that department. And 28 goals, first in the team in that department. Malkin, 66 points, 23 of those goals. And Jake Guentzel with 25 goals. Richard Rakell and Jason Zucker also over the 20-goal mark at this point. So this team can be dangerous. Top line, Crosby, Guentzel, and Rakell. Malkin, Zucker, and Danton Heinen make up the second line. Jeff Carter is the third line center with Drew O'Connor to his left, Alex Nylander to his right. And from left to right on the fourth line, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, Nick Bonino, and Josh Archibald. On the blue line, Brian Dumoulin, Chris Letang, they're the top pairing. Marcus Pettersson and Jeff Petrie are the second pair, and Jan Ruta and Dmitry Kulikov are the third pair. Jarry and DeSmith, the goalies. Ryan Poling on the IR. Mikael Gradlund and Brian Rust are day-to-day, and we have to check their status and see if they return tonight against the New York Islanders. Look, the Islanders can't let Crosby beat them. We've seen him do it so many times in the past, and hopefully they have some answers. But realistically, and I don't remember the last time I actually was able to say this, to win this game, the Islanders need to keep on playing the way they've been playing the last 4 or 5 games. Continue to be smart defensively, stick to their game plan, don't give up chances off the rush, get back and break up plays defensively. It's all mapped out. It's all there for this team. Now they need to go out and get it done. Huge game. And I'll tell you, this is one the Islanders need to win. 7 o'clock Eastern time. And this one will have the Islanders' regular announcing crew back, Brandon and Butch. So no ESPN Plus for this game. Islanders' birthday of the day. Well, we're a day early, but Friday will be the 48th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Andy Sutton. Sutton, a big guy, 6'6", 245, a stay-at-home defenseman, 4 years at Michigan Tech, made his NHL debut with the Sharks in 98-99, later played for the Wild and the Atlanta Thrashers before joining the Islanders in 07-08, stayed through the middle of the 2010 season before being dealt to Ottawa, later played for Anaheim and Edmonton before hanging up his skates after the 2011-2012 season. 676 career games, 38 goals, 150 points, and 1,185 penalty minutes. He was a big guy. I mean, Andy Sutton could move anybody out from in front of the net and was very solid in his own zone. His best game as an Islander, October 21st, 2009, at the Nassau Coliseum against the Carolina Hurricanes. And Andy Sutton with a goal and an assist in that game. He was a +1. His goal came on his only shot, and he played 18 minutes and 8 seconds in a 4-3 shootout win for the Islanders over Carolina. So happy birthday to Andy Sutton, a day early. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Again, I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen game-to-game NHL, every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every contest from across the National Hockey League with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game NHL. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back tomorrow with our key takeaways from this game against the Penguins, and we will also preview Saturday's game at home against the Washington Capitals. We'll also have any injury updates that are available and a lot more. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.